On December 24th, on December 24th, 1968, as the Apollo 8 spacecraft carrying the first human beings to orbit the moon began its fourth orbit, the astronauts who had been studying the moon's surface as it slid past beneath them looked up to the inspiring sight of the Earth rising from below the horizon of the sun. Wait a minute, the horizon of the moon. And William Anders took this picture, which has come to be known as Earthrise, showing the Earth as a blue and white sphere fragilely hanging in the darkness of space. When the astronauts had returned to the Earth and the picture was published, it stirred a strong response in the general public, and it quickly became a classic. In 2003, when Life published the book, 100 Photographs That Changed the World, the editors included Earthrise as one of those 100 world-changing photographs, and they even placed this picture on the cover of the book. In the caption accompanying the photograph, the editors noted that the world-changing nature of the picture lay in the fact that Earthrise photograph inspired contemplation of our fragile existence and our place in the cosmos. Now, Earthrise, depicting the Earth as a blue and white pebble against the black vastness of space, raised questions. Questions like, well, how did the Earth get here? How did it even come to be? How does this marble in space have water and clouds and atmosphere to sustain life when we know of no other planet that does? How does it happen that we, human beings, possessing consciousness and intellect, populate the Earth? Now, humans have been asking these kinds of questions for millennia, even from the limited perspective of having their feet planted on the ground, long before they had the perspective of being able to see the Earth like this. But now in 1968, looking at Earth as a blue and white marble in the vastness of space, the questions became even more penetrating. This gleaming marble, how? Why? Who? What? When? Now, the experience of being rocketed to the moon and then looking back at the Earth sparked powerful ruminations in the astronauts themselves. And they kick-started the consideration of these questions when, in a broadcast later that day, they read the account of God creating the earth from Genesis 1:1 to 10. Now, I have specific memories of listening to that live broadcast from moon orbit, Christmas Eve, 1968. And I have a memory of the surprise I and my whole family felt on hearing these astronauts, these men of science, reading the creation story from Genesis. As a Christian, feeling a bit of tension with the scientific world, I felt blessed by this acknowledgement of God as a creator. And later, when Earthrise picture was published, I shared with the rest of humanity in the feelings and the thoughts that the picture sparked. Now, the first thoughts that come out of looking at Earthrise are the questions of, how did it get here? How did it happen to spark life? How did human life come to be? Now, for scientific materialists, Earthrise pointed to nothing more than pure chance. Out of all the billions of stars, many of them surrounded by planets, one planet that just happened to be at the right distance from a star, to be warmed but not burned, happened to have the correct mix and proportion of elements, which, when sloshed around with water and exposed to just the right amount of sunlight, spontaneously percolated life on its own out of non-life. See, that's the explanation the scientific materialists offer us. And then that spark of life percolated out of a primordial soup of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and just the right touches of a myriad of other micro-constituents in just the right proportions, unlikely as that is to begin with, managed to get itself organized in such a way as to form fish, birds, giraffes, bears, cows, octopuses, kangaroos, horses, and humans, with all their intellectual capacities. And it all happened by pure chance. Now, it's quite an exercise of faith in blind chance to believe in something so incredibly unlikely, even given billions of years. But people who insist there is no God, no overseeing, designing, artistic intelligence, had no other explanation to offer other than dumb luck. But to believers like us, Earthrise pointed to the fact that an earth of such complexity, balancing oxygen and carbon dioxide in an intricate dance of respiration and photosynthesis, sustaining all flora and fauna, to say nothing of human beings with their ability to think and reason, pointed to a designer. These people concluded that the earth and the life that courses across its surface did not just happen by chance, without a blueprint or an architect. They concluded that this had to be designed. It had to be planned. It had to be engineered, and it had to have been done by a consummate artist. What discerning people saw in Earthrise is that there has to be a designer for this marble spinning in space. This did not happen by chance. This did not happen by sheer dumb luck. Earth and those who dwell on it are the result of a designer. They're the result of an artist, an engineer, a creator who is revealed in the scriptures as God. Celebrating God as the creator of the earth and the universe and plants and animals and human beings is a common theme in the Old Testament, especially in poetry. Now, we saw that in our reading from Psalm 104 this morning. Psalm 24 tells us the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, for he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Psalm 95 says, in his hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. Recognizing God as creator was a major theme in the New Testament as well. The author of Hebrews tells us, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command. John the Revelator says, "You are worthy, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they were created and have their being." Now, surprisingly, modern physics has been inching closer to a biblical understanding of creation, even though it is limited to what can be seen in the physical realm. In the last century, astronomical observations have revealed that the universe is expanding, with all parts of the universe rushing away from each other, just as we can observe debris expanding from an explosion. And the fact that the universe is expanding has led physicists through reverse engineering to the conclusion that it must have had a beginning, that the expansion had to have begun at some point in space and time. And they have named that beginning, which they have hypothesized, the Big Bang. And these physicists can give us an incredibly detailed account of what happened just seconds after the Big Bang, and how the universe has been developing and expanding since then, over billions of years. But they cannot tell us anything about before the Big Bang happened, in what I'm going to call the before time. That is, who or what set up the Big Bang? Who or what was there to make the Big Bang go bang? See, scientists can't see to before the bang, to that before time, to see what set this all in motion, who pushed the button. But that is something that we Judeo-Christians can do, because we have a God who has revealed himself as eternal, as having been there in that before time, which we call eternity, and who designed the earth and all plants and animals and us as human beings, and then spun it all out into space. So the who, what, when, how questions of Earthrise point us to God. This blue and white marble hanging out there in space is God's creation. He's the artist and the engineer who designed it and put it there. This earth exists because of God. Now, the second thought that came out of looking at Earthrise was that people were impressed by how fragile and vulnerable the earth looked, set against the frigid blackness of space. And very unexpectedly, Earthrise became a galvanizing and transformative picture, which led people to realize that despite how solid and huge the earth seems to us while we live here on the surface of it, the earth actually is fragile and vulnerable, with the merest, thinnest, tiniest skin of soil and sea and atmosphere and weather, and that we need to take action to protect it, sparking the environmental movement. Wilderness photographer Galen Rowell called Earthrise the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. Another author called it the beginning of the environmental movement. And 50 years after taking the photograph, William Anders himself observed, "We set out to explore the moon, and instead we discovered the earth." Now, in response to this discovery of the earth's fragility, the environmental movement got a huge boost, with the first Earth Day coming just 16 months later, raising awareness of humanity's destructive behaviors on the earth. Now, at that time, the major concerns were overpopulation and air and water pollution. And we were just beginning to hear about what was called the greenhouse effect. Now, today, the greenhouse effect has morphed into global warming and climate change. And more is being written about plastic pollution, which covers a Texas-sized swath of our oceans and is found in the deepest depths of the seas and the highest heights of our mountains and in our brains and in the breast milk we serve our infants. Because of the Industrial Revolution, just our daily living has toxic effects on the earth and those who live on it. And then looming as an ever-present specter is the damage that humanity continues to wreak upon the earth through greed, sin, war, and violence. Greed, sin, war, and violence have always had a negative effect on the earth and those who live on it. But in today's world, it's much worse. We've been killing millions of people each year. And we've been exacting an awesome environmental price through our greed and our war and our violence. It's an urgent lesson of Earthrise that the vulnerability of the earth tells us we've got to learn to forego our greed, our sin, our war, and our violence, and we need to embrace our brothers and sisters and neighbors and friends and even our enemies as co-inhabitants of the earth. What our learned experience from Earthrise is telling us in 2025 is the exact same thing that Jesus Christ preached to us 2,000 years ago. See, Jesus taught us that we need to love our neighbor as ourselves, to say nothing of your enemy, to say nothing of your brother or sister in Christ who happens to live in a nation with a different political bent. In expanding on the teaching of Jesus, Paul said, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. The author of Hebrews called on Christians to make every effort to live at peace with all people. For centuries, humanity, and to our great shame, great swaths of the church have ignored the call of Christ to peace among human beings. But Earthrise, coming exactly 50 years after the end of one global cataclysm, and 23 years after the end of a second global cataclysm, which had included the use of 2 atomic bombs, made it obvious that humanity had to find some way to brotherhood and sisterhood. But that's a lesson that we continue to ignore. And to our shame, it's a minority view even within the church, which claims to follow the teachings of Jesus. Anticipating Earthrise and environmentalism by 1900 years, Paul in Romans 8 spoke of the groaning of creation at humanity's sinfulness and destructiveness. Listen to these words of Paul in the context of Earthrise. The creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of those who subjected it. That's us, we human beings. And hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and sin and violence and war and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Earthrise, this incredible picture, stands for us as an emblem of the need for humanity to end its warring ways and to find a way to be brothers and sisters to each other. And this is where we Christians play a symbolic role every time we partake in communion. See, although we cannot see it here in Earthrise, this pebble, this marble, this earth, it has a web. It has a web of Christians holding hands all the way around it. There are Christians stretched all around the world. Now, we speak different languages. We eat different foods. We worship in different ways, but we are brothers and sisters to each other all the way around the world. And we need to celebrate that. We need to symbolize that. And that's what we're going to do as we partake of communion here today. With Earthrise over here above our heads, and with that earth-wide web of Christians firmly in our minds, I want us to come to communion today. Now, communion is founded in the events of the Last Supper. Matthew's account of the Last Supper says that while they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." I would like to invite us now to come forward. We're going to stand in a semicircle around here. Please take both of the elements and hold them in your hand. And Ron, we'll let you take these front seats so you don't have to be standing. And we will share together in the bread and the wine. So please come.